One of the biggest mistakes companies don't do is shout out their current status. Put your best foot forward. I'm amazed. There was one company when I was in the venture racket. After they gave this pitch, we said no thanks, because that's what we usually do 99 out of 100 times, right? We said no thanks. They were packing their bags. As they were packing their bags, we said, oh, by the way, we have 5 beta sites that paid us for this beta, testing. I said, what? You have 5? And then they told us who those companies were, which I don't remember. Big companies, real companies, paying them for the beta sites. It didn't change my opinion, but I thought, why didn't you start with that? Why don't you shout out your stats? You have beta sites, you have customer validation, you have studies paid for by customers. Another company came to us. They had third-party validation of all of their stuff, all paid for by independent laboratories. It was fantastic. There was no question of the validity of this product from a science point of view, right? It wasn't that the market wanted it yet. We still had to figure that out, which, by the way, they didn't, so we lost all of our money. But that wasn't the point. The point was they came to us with something that was third-party validated. It was a perfect place to start. Do you have paying customers? Are the vendors already interested? Here's one I love. How much is this going to cost? Blank stare from the entrepreneur. What do you mean? They didn't want to know what I mean. What do you mean, what do I mean? How much is it going to cost to make this thing? Well, we haven't gotten to that yet. But you've priced it, right? Sure we have. Okay. All right. So you got a price. You don't know how much it's going to cost. So believe it or not, something as simple as that. We know exactly the BOM, bill of materials, cost of goods sold, call it what you want. We know exactly what it's going to cost. Here's what our competitors sell theirs for, and here's what it costs them. How'd you get that? And they say, hey, that's my job. I'm the entrepreneur. I got to find out what my competitor's bill of materials is, right? So that's a really important but subtle point to make in terms of putting your best foot forward. Okay, assumptions. Man, I can go on for days about assumptions. There's not one assumption you should not log. Not one. Everything. There's everything. Your financial assumptions, your sales cycle assumptions, your margin assumptions, number of customers you're going to... Oh, I can go on. And I can't say enough about assumptions. Because everything derives from your assumptions. Assumptions that you'll make after a customer interview and the anecdotes that you'll get, and you'll log all that information. But just because even 3 customers say this, you're still going to have to make assumptions. You can't say, well, these 3 customers said it, therefore it's a given. That's just a quick qualitative view of the marketplace. Now you need to go out, and there are going to be some assumptions you have to make based on no data. Just your gut instinct. Guess what? That's fine, but note it. Just say it, because here's the problem. I call it the child-parent conversation. So look, most of us were children at some point. And the fact is, if you can recall the days of when perhaps you were a child, and you didn't do something that your parent told you to do, right? And you say, well, where were you? Or, no, I'm going over to John's house, right? Well, how are you getting home? Well, I don't know. Well, then now you get yelled at. So wait a second, you're going to go over to John's house, you don't know how you're getting home, I know how it's going to happen, you're going to call me up at 10:30 at night, you're going to expect me to pick you up. Instead, Mom, I'm going to John's house, can you pick me up at such and such time? It's just a different conversation. And what you do by noting your assumptions transparently is you change the level of interaction between yourself and the investor. Because in the absence of those assumptions, I'll tell you another secret. We personally enjoy beating on you. You know why? Because you're acting like a child and you deserve it. So come in, go ahead. Keep your own assumptions, close to your chest. Tell me all the great things you're going to do. And I say, well, how'd you get to that? Well, we all drank a beer and sat down in front of a spreadsheet. That's the truth. Okay, but I'm not interested in the truth. I'm interested in your assumptions. So then we just let you have it, and it's a bloodbath. Do you understand? Because it's fun at that point. Why not? You've asked for it. You walked in having not done your homework. So what you've done is you've taken what could have been what I think of as a peer conversation between business people, entrepreneur and investor, and you've done this. You've made the investor superior by virtue of not coming in with your assumptions noted. If you come in with your assumptions noted and transparent, the ones that are gut instinct, the ones that were given to you by your customers or potential customers, now you're having a business conversation. Oh, is that what the customers had to say? And why do you think this is the case? And why do you think that's the case? Now you're having a whole different conversation. So that's the whole point. Assumptions head off investors' doubts and questions by recognizing what's most variable, valuable, constant, known, unknown, etc. Most people don't tell you about this when they're telling you to write your business plans. So here's another thing I can't stand. You get entrepreneurs who come in and they splash icons all over their slides, right? Well, we're talking to AT&T and this and that. You know, take the icon off the web. Before the web, I guess we couldn't really do that. Now you can, so everybody copies and pastes the. I have no interest in that. I have what? So then I'll tell you what really happens. They say we're talking to AT&T, and then you dig a little bit. Well, an engineer in AT&T, unfortunately for him, picked up the phone one day. And you gave him an earful for 2 hours, and then got off the phone and said, huh, they are interested. Right? AT&T logo goes up on your business plan and website. AT&T is very interested in our technology. He was an engineer, man. Why do we love engineers? They're curious animals. Of course he's going to spend 2 hours with you on the phone. That's what engineers do. They love to hear this stuff. He's going to go home and tell his wife, this guy called me up saying he got this great technology. Really, you guys are going to buy it? I don't know. I don't write any checks. I'm an engineer. Next thing you know, and AT&T said, oh, splash icons. What you want to do is, for investors, you want to say, look, here's the company I'm doing business with. Here's the title. Don't give away any names. You don't have to give away any names. Don't tell them it was Rama Gupta I talked to. Irrelevant. The investor will ask for that later on if you want to. But the fact is it's the VP title. Why is that important? Because he can write a check. That's the point. You got to the check writer. We had a first meeting, we had a second meeting, we have a letter of interest. Look, these titles will change depending on what your product is, what your industry is, and what's the sales cycle. Part of the reason this sheet of paper is so important is not only because it tracks your progress, but it also explains to the investor that you understand the sales cycle. Well, this is a 9-month sales cycle. This is an 18-month sales cycle. And here are the steps we're going to have to go through. This is the part where I'm saying you make the investor comfortable. All right, I got somebody who knows what's ahead of him. He can budget his resources accordingly for an 18-month sales cycle. He's not trying to snow me with, it's a 6-month sales cycle. Or next month I'll have it for you. Nope, I'm going to have it in 17 months, and here's the stages I have to go through. This is also not obvious to me until I got into the racket of investing myself. Look, investors are not buying, as I was an A-round investor. I wrote checks of $500,000, $2 million, what have you. I wasn't expecting a company coming out of MIT or Draper Laboratory to go with $500,000 in the bank to the sale of the company. I wasn't even expecting them to go to profitability. Do you understand? So what was I buying? Well, you could say you're buying a piece of the company. Fine. Of course I bought a piece of the company. But what was I buying? I was buying milestones. I was buying, okay, we just spun you out of Draper Laboratory or MIT, or you're a new startup and we just funded you. Now, let's get to a couple of letters of interest from X amount of customers. Because if we can get to that level of validation from the marketplace, we can go to the next set of investors. I am buying milestones that will take the company to the next level so I can go to whom? The next investor. So, look, sometimes a company would say, we're looking for $5 million. This is a question companies always ask, well, how do you know how much money to ask for? No, that's not the right question. What milestones are you selling for what sum of money? So an investor would come to us and say, we're looking for $5 million. And I'd say, well, we're a small investor. What milestones can I buy for $2 million? That's what we would come back with. And the entrepreneur would say, all right, let me go away and figure this out. We had come to with a $5 million plan, but look, for $2 million, maybe I can get still to some good inflection point such that we can go raise a round. Or sometimes really good entrepreneurs would say, I can't get anywhere I really need to on $2 million. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. That's a perfectly valid answer. It's not a question of how much money. You think you have to get it just right. If you offer a kind of continuum in this way, then the investor can buy up to, look, how much will it cost me to get to cash flow break even? Well, that's $15 million. All right, oh, I don't have that. Well, how much will it cost me to get to your first ship product? All right, that's more like 5. All right, now we're talking, because a first ship product is a sufficient inflection point to go raise more money. So investors are buying milestones.